Hello YouTube, this is NJ4Water5. This is a video on a 3S battery pack made from a laptop battery. I guess salvage from a laptop battery, as long as everything works correctly. Let's see, first you want to take it apart. And of course I got red cells. I could have just tacked it up the way it was, but chances are one of these cells are bad, and you don't want to have a bad cell in your pack. The laptop pack that I pulled this from wasn't dead, by the way. It was just an extra laptop pack I had from an older laptop nobody ever uses, but sitting there you get some degradation. Looks like only this one is 2 volts, but that's still acceptable. Kind of contemplating breaking these apart. Okay, so I looked these up real quick. These are UR18650 FM M15A. They're supposed to be 2C discharge 2.6. There's a conflict on some of the sites where they're saying these are 2.5 nominal. Some people are saying they're 2.6. Based on the pack I just pulled this from, these would have to be 2.6. 2.5 wouldn't even equal 52. I believe it was, I think I had it at 52, which would be 26 and 26. But I would normally leave these together and just tack weld these. And that still may be what I'm going to do and get it deep on the fly. But no. That would be the wrong thing to do. So what you want to do is you want to take your side cutting nippers and you kind of want to roll it. And you got to be careful because you don't want to cut yourself, and you don't want to short the battery. You just kind of roll it and it comes right off. The Sanyos are the hardest ones that I've done personally. Whenever those guys put the nickel strip on, they put them on pretty good. Now what else you can do is you can take your side cutting nippers and trim these little nubs. and your side cutting nippers have to be sharp or they won't get them. You want to make sure those don't drop on the ground, because you step on one of those, it could be painful. And then these were in parallel, and these have been parallel their whole life, which is usually pretty good. They've actually been with the whole battery system, but I like to keep them in parallel if I plan on using them that way. So I'm going to throw a little bit of masking tape on there and mark like parallel number 1. Also, I'm not sure if you can see this on camera, but it's kind of raised. What some people do is they'll take a hammer and tap it. They'll take a hammer and do something like this. So we'll go ahead and check the voltage again, then now that they're separate from their partner. Straight from Prime. I finally got my hands on a Liitokala. After Tom from Alarm Hookup was buying them all up, they were getting hard to find. And then just recently I noticed that some were available, and I found one in the United States. Looks like an instruction booklet. Average Joe has a pretty good video on this with some how-to. That's how I figured out how to use this. "12-volt 2-amp charger," so it probably charges at 1/2 amp per cell. Max 24 watts, output 12-volt 2 amps. They also sent a car charger. That way if you're in your car and you need to charge some 18650s, you can plug in your Liitokala to your car and run it. Da-da-da. Oh wow. So you push the cell in like that. Get this plugged in. I'll time lapse the charge and discharge, that way this don't turn into a super duper long video. And then we'll test the Liitokala out at the same time that we're testing these red Sanyos. And then after we test for capacity, make sure the Sanyos are okay, they're not heaters, and they have good capacity, we'll throw together a 3S battery. With this configuration, because there's 6, you could do, I guess you could do 2S3P, you can do 3S2P, or you can do 6S1P. I think I'm gonna stick with the 12 volts and make it a 3S 2P. So it will be 12 volt 0.6 at 52 milliamps at best. So we'll do the testing. Speed up the film so you guys don't gotta sit there and watch it, and after it's done we'll throw together a battery pack. before I do some testing, I forgot to mention, when I have a cell that's below 2.5 and the normal chargers won't read it, what I'll do is I'll take this X-Star VC2 that I have, and I'll run them through here, and this charger can take 0-volt batteries, and it sends like a pulse to the battery trying to wake it up, and it does it like 3 or 4 times, and then if it doesn't, it'll error out. But if the battery's recoverable, it'll send the pulse to it, and then once it gets enough pulse and enough juice, the battery will wake up and slowly inch its way to nominal voltage, which is 3.7, I believe it is. But because this is only 4 cell holders, I'm going to go ahead and put the 2 volts and the 2 volt ones in here, and I'm going to put the 3 volts in here. So first we'll test the lower voltage ones in the X-Star VC2, and then we'll finish it up with the Liitokala after it's done testing the other 4. So we'll go ahead and do that right now, and again I will speed up the film so you don't gotta watch it in slow motion. And see, right now it's seeing it as under voltage, so it's sending a pulse to it, and it'll blink, and it'll do that until it catches voltage. Once it catches voltage, it'll show 1 milliamp. Once it shows 1 milliamp, that means that it picked it up and it's gonna charge. It's normally pretty quick. There you go. We got one over here on this side, and we got one over here on this side. Alright, so I'll time lapse this to probably full charge, possibly just 3.5 or 3.3, that way I can finish it up on the Liitokala. But for right now, I'm going to go ahead and run it on here until it gets to voltage. We'll time lapse that real quick. Alright guys, so real quick, with the X-Star I was testing those red heaters, and unfortunately at 0.5 of an amp, and I've never seen it happen on that X-Star, they got hot. They got, I believe it was somewhere up in the 50C range, and that's a little bit too hot for my liking. I tried all 6 of the cells at that little X-Star that I charged them with. Every cell I usually put through there, they don't even break a sweat, because I mean it charges them slowly. Sometimes you throw that on the charger, you can throw a dead cell in that charger and it takes a good 8 hours to charge. It's slow. It's a slow charger. But anyways, right when this cell would get to about 4.14 volts, I would go back over there and I'd feel it, and the cell was so hot that it was actually hard to touch. And I tried it with all 4 cells. There was 2 cells I had on there that actually, they made it to about 4.1 before they got to the 50 degree range. But that's too hot for my tasting. So here's some other cells that I'd actually taken out of a laptop, another laptop case. I didn't want to film that because I figured I've already showed you one. It'd be just monotonous. So I pulled these out of a different laptop. These are out of a what is that? An Idea Pad Levino. They came out. These were LG DBB31865s. They're 2.6, just like the red cells. their max discharge was 3,750 milliamps or 3.75 amps. So these are a good, well, they're actually a way better substitute. So right now, before I do any testing, I'm gonna go ahead and rewrap these cells. And the only reason why I'm doing it is because it's got all this crap on there and I don't want to get it all over my new Liitokala. I don't even know why the laptop battery stopped working. It actually had 0 volts, so I'm assuming it had something to do with the board. Something must have went wrong with the board. I checked this whole board and I couldn't find nothing blown. Everything looks good on there, but its failure is my gain. So here's I usually don't normally use LGs either. I try to use Samsung, but I do have some LG HB2s that I like to use a lot. These cells are awesome. They're only 1.5 or 1500 milliamps, but they discharge at 30 amps, so they're pretty crazy. These would be perfect. These you'd probably use in a vape machine, drill, power tool. This is actually the one that's going to go into my drill. And this one is going to go into my wife's weed eater. But these things are awesome. I'm almost out of them. I've sent a call out to Jehu. I'm like, hey man, hook me up. I need more of these because I use these things like crazy. But anyways, those are the only LGs I use. That's not these. These are the ones I'm going to be using for these. So what I like to do is I like to rewrap my cells. So this next part, you guys will just see me rewrapping the cells, and then after I rewrap the cells, I'm going to put them in something like this, get them ready to be soldered up. And this is the Opus that I did the hack on. Okay, so one thing to note, and I took some notes, I watched a couple of videos. When you place in the charger, you have 8 seconds to press the current to change it on all 4 cells. If you don't do it within the 8 seconds, you got to do it per cell. I believe this is the same way with the option of regular charging, fast test, or NOR test. Some people just use the fast test, and when you use the fast test, you want to make sure your battery is 100% charged. And the reason why you want to make sure that it's 100% charged only tells you how many milliamps you put into the battery, and it's not a full cycle like the NOR test. So on the fast test, you probably want to make sure it's 100% charged, but that's not going to give you accurate test. You want to use the NOR test, and that's test number 3. The NOR test will recharge the battery to full. It will discharge test, then it will recharge the battery back to 4.2, giving you the milliamps and the IR rating. Unlike the Opus you have about 8 seconds to change it to I can't remember right offhand. I'll have to show you once I get it all set up. But we're going to use the NOR test on the Liitokala, Apparently this is going to take a while. This is actually going to be pretty quick. It says that these could take up to 8 hours, 4 hours to discharge and 4 hours to recharge, and that's on a 2000 milliamp battery. So I'm hoping these are at least 80% capacity. Who knows? So it could be a 5-hour test. I'm gonna go ahead and speed through it. You guys won't even notice it, and then we'll come back as soon as they are charged with the full specs. You want to make sure that you get the specs of any battery that you build. You want to get the IR rating and the capacity of each battery, and it's good to try to keep them, you know, matched. The closer the better. A lot of people disagree and say that your milliamps can vary, or your milliamps can vary. But I prefer to try to keep mine as close as possible. Unless they're over 2.4, 2.5, then I'll throw a mixture of 3,000 milliamps. So let's go ahead and I'll make sure that everything's plugged in and ready to go. Then we'll run through this real quick to put it on NOR test, do a complete cycle, and see what we get on these batteries. Alrighty, so let's turn this on and let's see what we get. Right now it says null. The Opus turned on and it says null. So let's throw 4 cells in here. Also, if you look, these are different than the Opus. These cells going positive side down, these cells going positive side up. So I'm probably going to be slow at this in the beginning, so let's just bear with me. And I believe that's it. Looks like I got it just in time. Within the 8-second time frame, I was able to click the NOR test and put it at 1000 amps, where it should be charging and discharging. 1 is at 420, 2 is at 420, 3 is at 420. So all of them are showing, and I guess we let it do its thing. The internal resistance is kind of high in those. As you guys can see, I'm not getting too good of specs on these last cells. They're not too consistent. If I had to guess, this is going to be about 1800, 1800, 1600, 15. I don't like to use anything under 22. Well, luckily for you guys, I have another substitute. This is the 3rd substitute. This time I pulled from my good stock of 2200s from Alarm Hookup. Those came out of modem battery pack. So I'm gonna redo this test again, and let's do it with some good cells, and then we'll start this test one more time. This time I think what else I'm gonna do, so that they kind of finish at the same time, I'm going to go ahead and do the Opus at 500 milliamps instead of 1000 milliamps, because 2 amps would equal about half an amp per. So if you are charging at 1000 milliamps, discharge would be 500. If you have it set at 500, discharge would be 2500. If you discharge anything lower than that, I'm sure they have a minimum. Let me see if I wrote that down anywhere. It looks like the minimum is 250. So 1000 discharges at 500. 700 discharges at 350, and anything after that is 250. And that's on the Liitokala. So right now I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna set these up exactly like the other test, except for these cells are gonna go into my under 2000 bin. We'll get rid of those. And I will bring I also already did the wrapping. Technically you should probably wait till after the test to do the wrapping, but like I told you before, I've got tons of this stuff everywhere, so I like to put it on before I do the test, only because sometimes the battery's got a bunch of gunk on it and I don't like it getting into my machines. If they test bad, they test bad. You know, what else can you do? I didn't do it on my power wall. I'm gonna go ahead and throw the wraps on after testing. I've actually already tested those cells, but when I do my small packs, I usually just throw this on before, just to get it out of the way. I mean, if it's bad, it's bad. Just chuck it. So I know these cells are good, but I also said that about the LGs, but I just actually pulled those out of another good laptop. I guess now I know why it went to 0 on me. These are out of modem pack. Alarm Hookup said they had like 90% usage. I believe these are sets that I tested at 2200, but it's not going to hurt to run them again just to see the machines in action. I think this time I may take some temperature readings because this feels kind of warm, which is kind of weird. Yeah, the bottom feels kind of warm too. Huh. Anyways, so I think you can now see it this way. I had the light shining in there earlier, so I put them up. Yeah, you can see them now a lot better. Okay, so let's do this again. You gotta get used to the positive being down now. Alright, so we did the test, and I went ahead and replaced the battery that I had on standby. It was 1.8. These two batteries were measured on the Opus. One measured 2263, the other one measured 2182. These all measured the same on the Opus, around 2260s, 2200. But for some reason on the Liitokala they measured much higher. One measured about right, then the other three measured about 200 milliamps higher, 2402, 2342, and 2444. They weren't that high whenever I measured them on the Opus. So I'm going to use these 6 cells to finish out the video. So I'm going to go ahead and charge these up, and then after they're charged, we'll move on to the next step.